That's right, my brand new Tesla Model Y currently has 0 panel gap issues. It's crazy, this thing looks almost perfect. Hey everybody, welcome to Cars Jubilee. My name is Victor, and currently we own this Tesla Model Y, a Hyundai Ioniq 5, and a Genesis GV60. And our channel covers our ownership experience with all 3 of these amazing EVs. But for today's video, I'm going to go over every single issue we found on our brand new Tesla Model Y during the first 30 days of ownership. Then I'm going to go over just about every aspect of our very first Tesla servicing experience, where they actually fixed every panel gap issue that we could find, so that currently it looks almost perfect. And then I'll wrap it up with a quick update about our other 2 EVs, our Ioniq 5 and our GV60. So let's get to it. So let's start by unpacking all the issues we found on our brand new Tesla Model Y, starting with delivery day. The very first thing we saw was a torn speaker cover on the driver's side. It's a really small tear, but when I did the walkthrough with the sales advisor, he said, yeah, that will definitely get replaced. The next thing we found was actually the headlights. And this is really hard to see in photos, hard to see in person. Most people probably won't even notice this. One headlight kind of sticks up above the body panel, and the other one kind of sinks into the body. I'm not really sure which one is right, and again, it's pretty hard to notice it, but I did point it out to the sales advisor, and he said, let's just notate it, we'll see what service says. And the next issue was in the second row. The back panel kind of looked like it was sticking out in a weird way, kind of like it wasn't clipped in. And that was actually it. We only found 3 issues during delivery day. So at that point, I was feeling really good about this car. Like, everything looks pretty good. This thing feels pretty well built. And then as we got it home and spent a couple days with it, then we actually started finding a couple more issues. Going back to the headlights up front, I realized that the gaps around the headlights, these panel gaps, weren't even. One side looks perfect all the way around, and the other side kind of looks like it's been smushed to one side. And then there's the front hood, which is off a tiny little bit, and I've seen much worse. In fact, when we had a rental Model Y, it looked worse. And so to me, this one was like, yeah, this is actually not bad. But I figured, hey, let's just notate it and see what the service department says. And then we had the same issue with the trunk. It kind of feels like it's skewed to one side, just a little extra. I would say it's pretty close to what I have on my Ioniq 5, maybe a little better actually. And then there was this weird thing above the license plate, and apparently this is a very common issue with white Tesla Model Ys. Apparently the panels are sealed together. There's these little cracks going across, and then there's also this little weird paint splotch. And so we put all these into the service request. I was actually very curious what was going to happen with this one, but we'll come back to it in a bit. Next we had the third row headrest. The right side, it's very squeaky going up. And once it's in the up position, is very loose compared to the left side. And the very last thing was that this door back here, when we close it, sometimes it doesn't close. It kind of just feels like it latches halfway and then kind of bounces back. Probably needs a small adjustment. And that would sum up all of the issues that we found in our brand new Tesla Model Y over the first 30 days. So it may sound like our Tesla Model Y has a lot of issues, but to me, it doesn't seem that way. They all seem like very small, minor issues, and in fact, it compares pretty similarly to my Ioniq 5. Here's what I mean. My Ioniq 5 from factory had that weird panel gap alignment, and after 80 days in service, it's still there. On top of that, we had peeling window trim. That took 3 separate visits. That took 3 to 4 months actually to resolve. We also have a bad vehicle to load outlet in the back, where if you plug anything in, it just kind of shorts itself out after any kind of bumps or movement, making it kind of useless. It still doesn't work after multiple visits to the dealership. Our driver's seat slid forward and backwards. They had to essentially replace some bolts and some tracks to fix that issue. The car also came with deformed rubber seals that they tried to address on delivery day when we bought the car, but the repair didn't hold, so they ended up replacing those seals. So again, to me on paper, my Ioniq 5 and my Tesla Model Y are similar. They have body panel gap issues, they have fit and finish issues, And you guys know my experience with my Ioniq 5. Now I want to know, what's it going to be like with my Tesla Model Y? All right, moving on to actually scheduling service. And this was surprisingly already a big difference that I saw between my Model Y experience and my Ioniq 5 experience. With our Model Y, I was able to get an appointment 3 days out. Basically, on delivery day, got the car home, and then I was able to find an appointment just 3 days out after we picked up the car. That's a huge deal, because currently, I just tried to schedule an appointment for my GV60. They said the next appointment is 2 months away, which is crazy. And it's the same deal with my Ioniq 5. If I want to get those things scheduled for service, I'm looking at currently a 2-month wait. Next was the fact that I was able to get these issues scheduled for Tesla mobile service, where Tesla sends their Tesla technicians to my house and they'll work on my Model Y on my driveway. Hyundai doesn't offer that. Genesis, well, they offer valet and loaner service, where they'll send a driver to my house, leave the loaner, and then drive my car back to the dealership, which is a really, really nice thing to have. But I like the idea of being able to see the tech and talk to the tech actually working on my car. That's something I haven't been able to experience. And lastly is just the app. I was able to do everything. Schedule for service, I was able to upload photos, upload descriptions, and then I was actually able to message Tesla service directly through the app, and they would respond back. With my Ioniq 5 or my GV60, man, the apps are just not very good for a scheduling service. You know, if you want to schedule an oil change for your engine in your EV, sure, go ahead. But I mean, my EV doesn't have an engine. I have motors. And I don't need an oil change. But that's kind of what the apps are built around. They're built for, you know, conventional gas cars and scheduling service or maintenance around those things. And so it makes it hard to schedule warranty work through the apps for my Ioniq 5 or GV60. And so I end up just calling the dealership and being on hold for 10, 15, 20 minutes, and then finally getting someone on the phone and having to describe what's going on with my EV. And they're like, your what is broken? What's going on? A picture is worth 1,000 words, right? And Tesla lets you upload these photos so that someone else can see exactly what you're seeing, and they're able to look at these photos before your car even gets there. So there's already some dialogue back and forth. And so those three things are huge already. Being able to get an appointment slot within days instead of weeks or months, being able to schedule to have a technician come to your house to diagnose and fix the car, and then being able to do this all through a really, really good app that lets you send photos and descriptions and actually dialogue with servicing. Now, we did run into one hiccup though, right? Originally, I only had 3 issues on delivery day. We had the speaker cover, we had the headlights kind of one up, one down, and then we had the seat back cover in the second row. Based on those 3 things, I was able to schedule for mobile service. But then as I added new items to the request, that changed it or modified it, and so that pushed my service date or available service date back out again. But same thing, I looked on the date calendar and I was able to get another appointment that was only another 2 or 3 days out from that point. Then we sent the photos in, and actually Tesla servicing, they messaged me back and said, hey, based on all these new issues, we believe we need to see this car at a service center. And I said, that's fine. You know, as long as you guys can provide me a loaner, I'll do it. And so again, I was able to schedule for service at a service center, only about 2 to 3 days out again. And they confirmed I would get a loaner. And then actually about a day before the appointment, we had a time conflict, scheduling conflict, and I had to cancel it. And I had to personally push my own appointment out another week. I could have gotten it sooner, but I just didn't have the time. And this app gave me that flexibility to just pick whatever day and time worked for me. And so when that day finally came, I drove my car to Tesla, to one of my local servicing centers. We went to the one in Devon, Pennsylvania, and picked up my loaner. And that's the next part. Alright, on to my very first actual Tesla servicing experience at a Tesla service center. And specifically, this is in Devon, Pennsylvania. I arrived at 9 a.m. for my 9:30 a.m. appointment, and I had asked beforehand, is that okay? They said, yeah, just come on in. So I parked my car in the lot, and then I walked into the actual office. And this is interesting because there's no service bay, there's no service aisle. Your cars just go in a parking lot, and then you physically walk in. We walked in there, and I saw two guys standing at a desk. You know, they welcomed me, they checked me in, and then one of the service advisors said, hey, let's go take a look at your car. And I was like, whoa. They asked me to go see the car. Normally, in my experiences, the service advisors are buried behind desks, taking phone calls, and you kind of have to pull them out to see your car if they have the time. But anyways, that was a great start. So we walk out to my car, and I walk around and show them all the issues, even all the little panel gaps. And I tell him, hey, I don't know if they can do anything. These are pretty minor. But he goes ahead and puts tape down, writes notes on every single one of the issues that we talk about. And he says, yeah, we should be able to handle all these. We should be able to handle all these. And at that point, I'm feeling both really good about it, but also feeling really still skeptical about it, because I've heard of, you know, servicing issues and horror stories where the car went in and came back out the same or even worse. But I figured, this guy seems like he knows what he's looking at. He seems like he's seen these issues before, so maybe we're in good hands. Alright, so on to the loaner vehicle. Now when we got to it, it was a black Tesla Model 3. I didn't see the dual motor badge in the back, so I thought, might be a single motor, so I was a little disappointed. But then I got in the car, and then, it's a little dirty, it's a little grimy, and I, you know, wiped stuff down, and I was still feeling like, kind of wish this thing was better. It smelled a little funny as well, but we, you know, I put the windows down, and then I went into the software tab to check out or confirm, you know, what this thing was, and indeed it was a Tesla Model 3 Standard Range Plus. But as I scrolled down, I noticed, oh, wait a minute, this thing has full self-driving. Now, I have autopilot in my Tesla Model Y. I've also experienced enhanced autopilot as a rental car, and so I was kind of excited because I've never had full self-driving, and this is gonna give me the chance to try it out. So all of a sudden, I'm feeling, okay, this is still gonna be fun. Today's video is sponsored by LATOUGH. LATOUGH makes some really useful charging adapters. In fact, they actually sponsored our previous video with their CCS to Tesla adapter and their J1772 to Tesla adapter, which meant that I could charge my Tesla Model Y at any CCS DC fast charging station or any level 1 or level 2 J1772. With those two adapters, it really means that my Model Y can be charged anywhere, because I'll be able to connect to almost every charging station I come across. Well, LATOUGH went a step further this time and combined those two adapters into one. They combined the CCS adapter and the J1772 adapter into just this one adapter. So now the only one I need in my Tesla is this one, which LATOUGH is calling the CCS Plus, which stands for CCS plus J1772. Not only does it save space, but it also means I'll never accidentally bring the wrong adapter. And believe me, I've done that. I've shown up at Electrify America with my J1772 adapter because I left the CCS one at home. Well, that's never going to happen anymore. And this thing is awesome. I was getting full speeds, 150 kilowatts at the 150 kilowatt charger, and I was pulling 40 amps from my 40 amp home charging station. So if you're going to get a CCS adapter, this is the one you want. I'll post the Amazon link above and in the video description. Thanks LATOUGH. Now back to the video. I do want to go into what it was like, but I feel like it's probably better suited for a separate video of its own. What I will say is that there's certain parts of full self-driving that were incredibly impressive. I walked away like, wow, that thing was amazing. But there were also moments that were like, what is it doing? What's going on? So it's really a mixed bag. I think it really plays into where you live, where you plan to do full self-driving, but I could see this thing being very good in certain situations. Now, as far as the actual car, Standard Range Plus, I actually walked away pretty surprised as well. You know, we actually had a standard range plus rental about 2 years back. It was my very first time in a Tesla, my very first time driving an EV, and I remember being impressed, but I didn't think that the horsepower or acceleration was that crazy. Well, now that I've had experience with EVs, I actually feel like the standard range plus, that single motor, feels faster, especially on the highway compared to my Ioniq 5. My Ioniq 5 with the dual motor has a crazy 0 to 60 miles per hour launch. But from 60 miles and up, or even like 45, 50 miles per hour and up, when I slam the accelerator, even in sport mode, it just doesn't feel that quick. But that standard range plus Model 3, man, once the car's moving, hit the accelerator, man, that thing takes off. It just lunges forward. It's got so much more power than my Ioniq 5 does at highway speeds. So that was really impressive. And it actually made me think, maybe I would be okay with a standard range plus or standard range level of power, because it's plenty quick. It feels quick on the road. Pretty fun to drive, actually. So something I'll have to consider in the future. Where we live, it's, you know, really hilly and we get snow, so if I can find a way to store some winter tires, you know, that kind of opens up the possibilities of what I could own moving forward. But yeah, to sum it up, the car itself was a little dirty, a little grimy, a little worn, but the actual guts of it, the full self-driving was impressive, and the standard range plus motor, single motor, was actually also very impressive, and the efficiency was really good. Alright, so 2 days after I dropped off my car, I got a message, your car is done. And so, drove back to the service center, parked, found my car, moment of truth, did the first walk around, and man, I was in utter amazement because all the panel gaps were gone. Remember, they're all really small, very minor, and I kind of assumed that they weren't going to fix all of them, but they did. This thing looks pretty close to perfect, and I walked around like 4 or 5 times just in utter amazement, speechless. Like, I couldn't believe it. They were able to fix all of them in less than 2 days, because we dropped off on Monday, July 3rd. Tuesday was July 4th, so they didn't work on Tuesday, and I picked up on July 5th, on Wednesday. So they barely had the vehicle, but they were able to fix all these things. Whereas Hyundai had my Ioniq 5 for 80 days and they couldn't fix that panel gap in the trunk. So really, I was just speechless. Now, what about everything else? Well, speaker cover wise, they did replace that. That looks good. Second row seat back looks good. Looks like it was adjusted or clipped back in. The lift gate, that weird crack on both sides, clearly they put some kind of sealant on there. It looks better, but we'll see. Time will tell if it holds and if I have to bring it back in. So that's one thing to keep an eye on. Number 2 is that paint splotch right underneath. They actually said that was within spec, which is kind of weird. I feel like that's something, if I push hard enough, can probably get addressed. So that's something I'm also going to work on moving forward. So that's number 2 that I got to work on. And number 3 was that third row headrest. Well, apparently they say that's within spec. This very squeaky headrest that comes up and then shakes and rattles, whereas my other side one doesn't do any of that. So I'm pretty sure that's probably something they can fix. It just might be more involved, but again, that's an issue that I'll work on moving forward. I'm just still blown away and really impressed at what they were able to do outside with the panel gaps, because I've heard horror stories. I've heard owners going in with panel gaps and coming back with worse panel gaps, or just them not being able to fix it and being told it's all within spec. Well, that didn't happen for me at Devon, Pennsylvania's Tesla Service Center. They took my car in and they fixed every single panel gap. So what are my main takeaways from my very first Tesla servicing experience? Well, number 1, I think my Devon, Pennsylvania service center might just be one of the better ones, because I've heard those horror stories of people going into service centers and getting their cars back in worse shape, or ones where they just say everything's within spec and they never fix anything. with my Model Y at the Devon Service Center, they were able to do some pretty amazing stuff. This car looks pretty much perfect in terms of panel gaps outside, and they addressed most of the things that I wanted them to address. So that was one. Number two was, I kind of like how the service center's reps were not on the phone. Like, typically you cannot really just call a Tesla service center. They want you to message them through the app, and that kind of benefited me, I feel like, because the service center rep was able to take time and walk me to the car, and he didn't feel rushed. He wasn't buried behind a desk answering phone calls, doing a million things at once. He was just focused in on me and my car. And the third takeaway, I think, is the fact that everyone's experiences are going to be different. Even if you have a Tesla Model Y, your experience will possibly be very different from mine. Same with if you have an Ioniq 5, your experience could be very, very different from mine. It just really comes down to the quality of your service center. And so what I'm saying here about my experiences with Tesla and Hyundai should not be taken as blanket statements for all Tesla and Hyundai service centers. They're all going to be slightly different, but still, I think it's important to share what mine have been like. But yeah, overall, just really, really impressed so far. In case you didn't already know, Hyundai recently offered to buy back our Ioniq 5 after we'd been struggling with panel gap issues, some build quality issues, and some servicing issues. The timing kind of worked out perfectly because our family suddenly grew into a family of 6, and at that point we were kind of exploring our options anyways, and the buyback allowed us to jump into this brand new Tesla Model Y with a 7-seat configuration. So the preliminary paperwork for the buyback has already been filed. At this point, we're just waiting for the third party that's handling the official vehicle surrender. At that point, we'll actually drive our car to the dealership, hand over the keys, and that'll be that. Currently, we're expecting this is going to happen at some point in August, maybe towards the end of August. And at that point, we would finally be saying goodbye to our Ioniq 5. But it has not happened yet. So in the meantime, I've been doing a lot of filming, and I plan to do a lot of editing over the coming months so that you'll still have a lot more Ioniq 5 content coming your way. And then we have our Genesis GV60, which is kind of like the forgotten vehicle on our channel because we've been doing a lot of Ioniq 5 content, and now we have this Tesla Model Y as well. And well, actually 1 year of ownership has already snuck up on us. And so I've got a 1-year ownership update coming that's gonna go over all the good, all the bad, and everything kind of in between. But in case you weren't aware, we still have phantom brake issues. Now, this is not like Tesla phantom braking. Tesla phantom braking happens with autopilot when you're on the highway. With our Genesis GV60, it's happening just local driving without any driver assist features enabled. Meaning I'm trying to make a left turn at an intersection, and just randomly it'll decide, nope. It'll let me kind of creep into the intersection, and then it'll slam on the brakes while I'm in the middle of the intersection, and it won't let me move for up to about 5 seconds. Basically, it's cut power. You know, we've sent it to the dealership multiple times. We've talked to corporate about it multiple times, but for whatever reason, they're just refusing to do anything about it because they're saying all the sensor readings are coming back normal. And I get it. They're basically not able to replicate. They're not able to figure out what's going on. But when a customer tells you, hey, this car has locked up on me 3 times, emergency braked, and then cut power in the middle of an active intersection to the point where if I can't move in time, I'm going to get hit, but corporate decides not to do anything, I don't know, that's just weird to me. They're basically saying, hey, just keep driving until something happens and let us know. So that's the kind of thing we'll be talking about during our 1-year update, so make sure you stay tuned for that as well. In one of the previous videos, I mentioned that we were kind of doing the swap, and some people applauded the move, some people criticized the move. Did we make the right choice? Well, at least from a servicing perspective and a panel gap perspective, I think we made the right choice. I mean, Tesla fixed all this stuff in 2 days, whereas Hyundai took 80 days, and they still haven't been able to fix those panel gaps. And that's actually 80 days spread out over a 1.5 years of ownership, to the point now that Hyundai Engineering is refusing to service my Ioniq 5 for panel gaps. But again, your experience could be very, very different from mine. Now, maybe you're wondering, well, besides the whole servicing and panel gap issue, What do I prefer, my Ioniq 5 or my new Tesla Model Y? And that's actually a topic that I'm going to explore in depth over the next coming months. Over multiple videos, we'll go over so many things like HDA versus autopilot, the driving dynamics, the family abilities of both EVs, lots and lots of comparison content that I plan to do, so make sure to stay tuned. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and of course make sure to check out our Amazon influencer store. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.